everyone and welcome to the class. Now today we are going to solve questions from molecular spectroscopy in this particular video, and I'm going to take questions from your previous year exam, that is your June 2019 exam of your CSIR UGC net, right? So let's take some questions which have been asked from this molecular spectroscopy. Now before starting this topic, let me just tell you that this is one of the most important topic and one of the most difficult topic, I would say, from physical chemistry, because people don't study this topic in that much detail. But I don't know what's the reason, but yeah, the topic is very important and very interesting too, right? You have to study about molecules, what happens inside them, how molecule vibrate, how molecules stretch, bend, what are different things going on in a particular molecule. So you study a particular like system at the molecular level over here. So the physics of that is very interesting. So this topic is very interesting to study, and I'll suggest you to go for this in detail, like refer some good books and study this particular topic in a lot of detail. Okay, so let's quickly jump to the question. Before going into that, let me just tell you about the importance of this topic. So the number of questions generally which are asked from this particular topic are like you would get around like 3 to 4 questions from this, or sometimes it might be like 5 to 6 questions. It depends. Okay, generally it varies from 3 to 6 in the CSIR net exam. Marks weightage goes around your 14 to 20 marks. Okay, so from physical chemistry, this is second most like topic, the second most highest weightage topic from your physical chemistry. Difficulty level, I would say it's from moderate to difficult. Generally, questions are from the difficult side. Okay, moderate to difficult. That's the difficulty level for the questions. Now, let's talk about the first question over here. So this question was although asked for 2 marks, and it was asked in the same exam, that is CSIR June 2019 exam. The question here was said like as the question says, that the correct statement about HCl and DCl among the following is. Now you know both are like D is nothing but deuterium, isotope of hydrogen, right? So there are 4 different statements. The first one says that DCl has a smaller 0-point energy than HCl. Second says HCl has a smaller vibrational frequency than DCl. Third says that the force constant K of the HCl bond is half that of DCl. All right. Fourth one says that the reduced mass of DCl is smaller than that of HCl. Okay. So we'll go to this particular like statements one by one. First of all, talking about 0-point energy. Okay. So your 0-point energy is given by this formula, that is half h nu. Okay, where nu is the frequency. Now nu, that is frequency, is given by this formula, that is 1/2 pi under root k by mu. Okay, where k is the force constant and mu over here is the reduced mass. Now k is the force constant. It depends upon how strong that particular bond is. We are talking about HCl and DCl, so how strong the bond between hydrogen and chlorine is, and for DCl how strong the bond between deuterium and chlorine is, right? So taking that into consideration, there will be not much difference in the K value when you have 2 different atoms. Actually, when you have isotopes, in that case, there will be no that much difference over here. So that means what? That the statement about the force constant is not going to be that much different. Okay, it says that the force constant for HCl is half that of DCl. That is not going to happen. Okay, that if you have isotopes of the same atom, so that force constant does not depends like that. It depends upon if the system has electronegativity, if the differences are more in the electronegativity, or if there is intermolecular hydrogen bonding. So that is going to cause increase or decrease in the force constant. But just by changing the atom with an isotope, it's not going to work. Like that's not going to make much change over there. Talking about the reduced mass. Now reduced mass is given by this formula, that is mu is equals to m1 m2 and divided by m1 plus m2. So if you take an isotope, basically, so that will have more reduced mass, right? That means mu of DCl will be obviously more than mu of HCl. So is there any statement about the reduced mass? Mu is the reduced mass. So it says that the reduced mass of DCl is smaller than that of HCl. That is not going to happen, okay? Because you can see the reduced mass of DCl will be more. You can put the values and you can actually get the exact numerical terms, but that is not needed actually. Mass of deuterium is taken to be 2, mass of chlorine you have to take it as 35.5. So you put that, obviously you are going to get more mass for the deuterium, right? You would get 70 in the numerator, whereas for HCl you will get around 35. So actually the reduced mass for DCl will be more. So the fourth statement also gets cancelled out. Talking about the vibrational frequency, that is nu, Um, so that particular part, if you see, so nu is proportional to 1 upon under root mu, right? So it depends upon reduced mass. If you increase the reduced mass, your frequency will decrease. That's the relation between both of them. So if the reduced mass increases, frequency decreases. So that means what? If the reduced mass of DCl is more than HCl, then what about the frequency? So obviously the reverse relation. That means the frequency for DCl will be smaller than the than the frequency of HCl. So what does it says about the vibrational frequency? It says HCl has a smaller vibrational frequency. So that is also going to be wrong. See, HCl has a more vibrational frequency. Now about the 0 point energy, that you can easily say, since since the DCl has a smaller frequency, now 0 point energy you can see from this equation also, that 0 point energy is actually dependent upon the frequency. So since DCl has a smaller frequency, so it will have smaller 0 point energy, right? So if you write down for 0 point energy, so for 0 point energy of your DCl will be smaller than 0 point energy of your HCl. That's what your first statement says. That DCl has a smaller 0 point energy than HCl. So statement 1 becomes your correct answer for this question, right? So I hope this is much clear to you. All right, so let's move on to the next question. All right, so this question is again a good question, and it was asked in the same exam for 2 marks. It says that the rotational partition function is expected to be smallest for the molecule in the following ones. So you are given with 4 different molecules, and you have to tell that in which of these rotational partition function is going to be smallest. Now, basically, this particular question is from the both combined topic. Like you have to deal with molecular spectroscopy as well as statistical thermodynamics, because there we study about the partition functions, right, in the statistical thermodynamics. So both have been combined, but you don't have to worry about it. The equation is quite similar to what you study in the molecular spectroscopy. So let me just tell you about that. So your rotational partition function denoted by Q rotational is actually given by 8 pi square I k t and divided by sigma h square. That's the formula for your rotational partition function. Now you know where I is your moment of inertia, right? And you can write down I is equals to mu r square. All right, where mu is the reduced mass and r is the distance, the radii basically. So you can put it over here, and you know that the rotational constant B is actually given by this formula, that is h upon 8 pi square IC. That's the formula for your rotational constant. Now you can substitute all these values and you will get a new formula for Q rotational, and that is going to be like KT divided by sigma HCB. So this is going to be the formula for your rotational partition function. So this particular equation relates your rotational partition function with the rotational constant. But since that is not going to help us that much, we are going to relate this rotational partition function with your with the value of I. So if you put it over here, so what you are going to expect is Q rotational is equals to 8 pi square KT, and in the place of I am going to write down mu r square and divided by sigma h square. So if you see this, all the other things are constant, right? All the other terms are constant over here. So your Q rotational is actually proportional to your mu, that is, it is proportional to your reduced mass. So if the reduced mass increases, your Q rotational also increases. So you have to just see that where you have the smallest value of the reduced mass. So you have 4 different molecules given over here. Obviously, you reduce mass, you know, I have already given this equation in the last question. It is given by M1, M2 divided by M1 plus M2. Now, you can see the smallest mass will be for the smallest molecule, that is for the hydrogen molecule. So this is going to be have the smallest rotational partition function. So it's pretty simple. Just by using the equations, you can do this. So this equation is just the additional information. It is not being used to solve. You just need these 2 equations to get the answer. That's it. All right, so I hope this is much clear. Let's go to the next one. All right, so let's talk about this question here. It's again, it was asked for in the same exam, but it was asked for 4 marks, and many people got confused with this question because this is something which has not been asked yet. It was a very surprising question in the exam. Okay, so what it says that the bird spawner plot between delta G V plus 1 by 2 is equals to this, that is epsilon V plus 1 minus epsilon V. For V plus and V plus 1 for CO is a straight line, So basically they are plotting a graph between this particular term and this particular term, okay, for CO, for carbon monoxide. And it gives them a straight line with the slope of this much, and the intercept is coming out to be this much, okay. So both of them are in centimeter inverse. The approximate value of the dissociation energy. So they are asking about the dissociation energy value. So assuming CO as the anharmonic oscillator with the energy expression. So see, the energy expression is already given to you, and the value of dissociation energy is also given to you. What you have to do, you just have to use the same equation to solve it, okay. Now we have been given with the value of your E mu or EV, you can say for now. So let's calculate that for V plus 1, okay. So your, or epsilon V plus 1. So how much you are going to get? You just substitute over here V plus 1. So if you do that, basically, so you are going to get, if you put over here, so it will be V plus 1 by 2 omega minus V plus 1 plus half square, and it will be like X E omega. Okay, that's what you will get. Solve it up further. So you will be getting what? You will be getting V plus 3 by 2 omega minus V plus 3 by 2 square XC omega. Okay, now just take the difference of both of them, because then only you are going to get this particular term for which you are plotting the graph. So just subtract both of these things. So when you subtract these things, like what I'm going to subtract is this with this particular equation. So I'll be getting epsilon V plus 1 minus epsilon V. So what I'm going to get when I subtract both of these, so this term will be subtracted by this, right? So in the bracket I will be having V plus 3 by 2 and minus V and minus 1 by 2. Okay, and then omega. Then I will be having minus sign, and in the bracket I will be having this particular term, that is V plus 3 by 2 and the square of that. Okay, so just it's a square, and minus V plus 1 by 2 is square. Okay, and X E omega. So here you can see this V and V will be cancelled out. Here you are going to get 1 over here only. So overall value, you just have to calculate this. So overall value after solving this will be, so the value which you will get after solving whole of this will be like epsilon V plus 1 minus epsilon V will come out around omega minus 2 X E omega, and in the bracket it will be V plus 1. Now just look upon the graph for which they are plotting the graph. They are plotting graph between this and between this term. Okay, this is X. Okay, this is X. So that means what you are plotting, this you can relate it with this y is equals to mx and plus c. Okay, so the slope will come out to be this much. So the how you can write down, you can just relate both this equation. So slope will be minus 2 xc omega, and intercept you are going to get is omega. All right, so that's two things you got. You got slope, you got intercept. Now intercept value is already given to you, and that is 2170. So the omega value is nothing but 2170 centimeter inverse. That's what you got. Now you just have to substitute over here to get the solution further. So I'll just solve it over here. Now see, the slope is given to you, right? So slope is equals to how much? Is minus 14, and that is actually equal to minus 2 xc, and the omega value, omega is 2170. So this is multiplied by this. So what will be the value of your XE now? So XE is going to be something like this. So XE, so you can just cancel out this and this. So that will be 14 upon 2 into 2170. So this is the value of XE which you calculated. Now the dissociation energy which you have to calculate is given by this expression. So the dissociation energy is equals to omega upon 4xe. You can just substitute the values. So I'm just going to put them directly over here. So the value of omega, how much it is? Omega is that is 2170, right? Divided by 4 into xe value is 14, and divided by 2 into 2170. Or you can write down that dissociation energy is equals to 2170 into 2 into 2170 divided by 4 into 14. When you solve this all by mathematical means, your D is going to come out around 168,175 centimeter. Okay, so this is going to be the final answer for this particular question. So option number 3 is going to be the correct option for this particular question. Now see, this questions, like we have taken 3 questions which have been asked in the exam. And if you have seen all the 3 questions, they were not that difficult, right? They were quite easy to solve, but the only thing is that if you know the basics, if you know the formula, then only you will be able to solve them. So I'll just summarize all the things now. So the level of questions which were asked in the exam for this particular paper, I would say they were moderate generally. Okay, I would say the first one was moderate, first two were moderate, the third one was difficult. Okay, so first and second were moderate, whereas the third question which I took was a difficult question because you have to solve the equation and then you have to relate and do right. Many people didn't got the idea actually, so that's what it is. It didn't click. That is the thing. Concepts which were used in the first one, the concept of 0 point energy was used. So 0 point energy, that's the formula which was used for the first question. For the second one, we were having the formula for rotational partition function. Okay, rotational partition function. And for the third one, actually everything was given to you in the question itself. But yes, the condition for n-harmonicity and Burge-Spooner plot. Okay, so sorry, Winch-Spooner plot. Spooner plot. So this was used in the third question. Some useful tip about it, the same I would say, that solve questions related to this topic and try to study this topic. Okay, read it from some good standard reference. Okay, from a standard reference book. So that is all I would say to prepare this particular topic. Alright, so thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you guys liked this video, you guys understood whatever I taught, and you guys enjoyed this, right? So that's all from my side for this particular video. I'll see you guys in the next video with a new topic with some new questions, right? Thank you so much and take care.